everyone, and welcome again to Jason's in the House. I'm your host, Jason Parisella, a real estate agent here in Beverly with Keller Williams Realty. And today we have as our guest Mark Bavaro. He is a former NFL football player with the New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles, Cleveland Browns. Mark also grew up in Danvers and currently resides in Boxford. And Mark brings a different perspective on buying and selling real estate, which we're going to talk about, actually touch upon today. And also we're going to talk extensively about his NFL career and some really great information. So, Mark, great to have you on the show. Pleasure to have you here.
Great to be here.
Excellent. So why don't we first just talk about, you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and, you know, where you grew up and a little bit about how you started playing football and that type of thing.
Sure. Well, you know, the football probably came from my father. He was a football player himself. He grew up in East Boston, went to Holy Cross, was drafted by the 49ers back in the, I think, 1960s, something like that.
Oh, wow.
So it was always in the family. He only lasted a couple of years. He had a knee injury. So we kind of always grew up with football in the house and things like that. And I grew up in Danvers. I graduated Danvers High in 1981. And I always played football from a kid, in Danvers youth football. So we started when we were 10 years old.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course, like any other boy, I mean, I always had dreams of making it to the big time, playing the NFL, but it was always, I never really took it that serious. They were just dreams, but.
So did you play football? Was there any other sports you played growing up?
I was a track, yeah, because my father was also a teacher at Malden Junior High, and he was the track coach at Chelsea High School.
Okay.
So I would go with him to the practices and all that stuff, and I would, you know, fool around with the high jump and the shot put, and I'd run around the track and all that. So I grew up with a love of track as well. I was actually a high jumper, and I wanted to be a high jumper in the Olympics back in 1976 when Dwight Stones was the man. But something happened when I was about a sophomore in high school. I gained about 100 pounds.
Well, I was going to say, you wouldn't,
Yeah, so I was, I still managed to do it throughout high school, but it definitely was not, you know, practical to keep doing it. And then my love, you know, for sports turned from track to football. And, you know, I don't want to say that I willed it to happen, because I didn't. I was going along the treadmill of every other kid that I was around. And when it came time to go to the next level, you know, some kids would drop off, you know, they couldn't do it for whatever reason. And I was always able to go to the next level, not by anything special that I was doing on my own. I just was kind of going through the motions. And that's what happened from high school to college. I was able to play at the college level. And then from college to the pros, you know. Whereas I would see tons of my teammates go by the wayside when it came time to go to the next level. I was always able to progress. And like I said, not because of anything special I was doing, you know, sometimes that's just the way it happens. You have to be very, very lucky. I think to get to the NFL, you have to be talented, but you also have to be very lucky, and I was very lucky at crucial times in my career.
Well, that's interesting, you know, because I was going to ask you, what made you different than everybody else that you were able to become an NFL player, and, you know, and you're saying that a lot of it had to do with.
Well, you have to be good. I'm not saying I wasn't good.
There must be a commitment and a focus, or you think it's genetics, or what do you, I mean, you know, size?
Yes. You're born, I wasn't, you know, I didn't make myself 6'4", 250 pounds, you know. I mean, I was born that. I grew that way because of my father.
So you're naturally built to be a, you know, a football player.
And the other thing, too, was I was a tight end, you know, which my position was a fortunate choice for me, because not many people can play tight end. It's a tough position to play. You have to be versatile across the board. You know, you don't have to be a standout in any one thing, you know, which I really wasn't. I was a good blocker, I was a good catcher, you know, but I wasn't like the best receiver out there, and I wasn't the best blocker around. But you have to be kind of balanced throughout, and I was. And, you know, when it comes time to pick a team for college and even the pros, you know, when they look for tight ends, there's not many guys who fit the bill, right? So the pool of my competition was smaller to begin with, which made it much easier because I could easily have stayed at linebacker at college, where I would have to compete against 20 guys, as opposed to I was able to play tight end. There was 3 tight ends on the team.
So did you play tight end the whole time in college, which was Notre Dame?
Yeah, so I went to Notre Dame
Yeah.
as a tight end / linebacker.
Okay.
And they said, we have tons of linebackers, but we need tight ends. So give tight end a shot first and see what happens. And that's what happened.
So I guess, I don't know if this is the right wording or not, but it sounds like fortunately that you were able to catch passes, obviously, because you went from a linebacker where you didn't have to deal with that to, having to make sure you're catching the pass.
Right. I mean, and my first love was linebacker. I always wanted to play defense.
Shows there's a lot of linebackers that would never be able to be tight ends because they just don't have the hands.
Catch, yeah. So I mean, I had that coordination going for me, which helped me to not only play tight end, but ultimately, I excelled at it. I mean,
right.
I was pretty good tight end, which surprised me as much as anybody else from around here, because when I left here, I didn't have a lot of fanfare. A lot of people, when I went to Notre Dame, people were scratching their heads like.
You're definitely a name in this area. You were.
I became one.
Yeah,
right?
you
But
definitely became one.
In high school, there was a lot of skepticism as to why I was going to such a high level of college football.
So why did you end up deciding Notre Dame?
It's an interesting story. I mean, there was a girl involved, and
okay, so yeah,
it probably wasn't the smartest basis to make a choice, to make a decision on, but it worked out, and it definitely was a challenge. I mean, I didn't get to play at Notre Dame till I was a junior.
Wow.
So I mean, there was 2 years of self-doubt, possibly some regret, making the wrong choice. And escape plans. I almost left Notre Dame a bunch of times. But around my junior year, through attrition, they didn't have a tight end. Like I said, going back to fortune circumstances, the team physically did not have a tight end on the roster that they felt they could put on the field. So it was there. It was really kind of just there for me to step into it, as long as all I really had to do was just stay in school.
So,
and even that was a challenge. I almost didn't stay in school, but
well, I'm sure that's a challenge, just in being playing a sport in college at that high level, and then just keeping up with your grades and the schoolwork is a challenge.
Yeah, especially at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's, it was a hard school.
Yeah.
Probably not the best choice for me academically, because I wasn't a great student, and I didn't even want to go to college.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't go to college to go to college. I went there to play football, and for 2 years, that's a long time when you're a kid. 2 years is a long time to just be met with failure after failure after failure. I had to stick it out, and I almost did. I'm not saying.
Yeah, so you must have gone to a point where you're thinking, well, geez, maybe I could become or your dream was to be an NFL football player, and then you're thinking,
but I mean, at that point, I was like,
thinking
football's not even in my future now. I can't, if I can't play here, I'm not even playing pro. So I was thinking about other things to do. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
the prospect of staying at Notre Dame and going to classes and doing homework and writing papers and taking tests, I mean, that wasn't really part of the plan for me.
Right.
But fortunately, timing worked out the way it did. The spot opened up on the team for me to really start getting some playing time and having fun, and I was able to, suck up the rest of the schoolwork and finish.
Good. So you must have obviously had a good or a great junior year and senior year that you started getting recognized.
Yeah, I had a decent junior year, and I had a pretty good senior year, and I ended up making a AP All-American. Back then, the AP All-American team would go to the Bob Hope Christmas special, and were introduced on his Christmas special show. So I got to do that. Got to fly out to Hollywood or wherever they filmed it, and I was on the show, and he made a joke about me. It was pretty cool for my family to see, and I was nervous as heck.
Yeah. Wow. That's quite an experience.
Yeah.
So, and then junior year you played, your senior year. When did you start really talking with the NFL? When they approached you, and how did that work?
Well, it's a process, no one's in control of it. It's like I said, it's pretty much an assembly line. You get on it. You're a senior in college. The scouts come in. They ask who's the seniors, and they knew who I was because I had been playing. So they come in one by one and they work you out. Today, the big thing is the combine.
Well, I was just going to say the combine. It wasn't as official as
well,
that.
The combine was there back then, where they invited the top 100 players from college to go to the combine. I didn't get invited.
I see. So you weren't in the top 100.
I wasn't in the top 100.
Yeah.
So if teams wanted to look at me, they had to actually come and check me out on campus. And I went to I went to the Chicago facility because we were so close to Chicago for like a league-wide physical that they disseminated to all the teams. And then I also flew out to Atlanta. I flew out to the Patriots. I flew out to Seattle, and maybe Kansas City. They check you out. So it's kind of a process, and I didn't know what was going to happen. But on draft day, the Giants ended up picking me in the 4th round.
4th round, wow.
And I was the 100th player chosen in the draft, which I've always found pretty interesting.
Interesting.
100 on the nose.
So who was the first round draft pick that year? You remember?
I don't know who the first round draft pick was.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just curious. Yeah. So that was, what year was that? 80?
That was 85.
85?
Yeah.
So 85 was the year that the Patriots played the Bears in the Super Bowl and lost to the Bears.
I mean, I was a local kid, so I was a big Patriot fan back then, and I was out in Chicago area, at Notre Dame. It's only like an hour and a half away from Chicago, so they consider themselves Chicago area. And I was sick of hearing all about the Bears, So I was,
they were such quite a popular team then, yeah. So did you actually play against the Patriots that year?
In 85, no. I don't think so, no.
So you got drafted in 85, so you got drafted by the
Giants.
The Giants. So that's
we ended up playing the Bears in the playoffs in 85 and got our butts handed to us.
But you didn't play the Patriots that year?
Didn't play the Patriots, no.
So you ended up losing to the Bears in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've only played the Patriots maybe 2 or 3 times that I can remember in my career.
Yeah.
It didn't happen very often.
So you end up at the New York Giants, 1985. So what happened? How did your career go, and how about the team? And talk a little bit about the team and some of the accomplishments.
All right, here's another example of being fortunate. I got to the Giants.
So did you play the first year? You were starting tight end?
I did, but only because back then teams didn't usually play 2 tight ends. Nowadays you see 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends in formations. It's pretty prevalent.
Yeah.
Back then, teams only, you only had 1 tight end that played at a time. So we had a good, we had a good tight end, and Zeke Mowat.
Oh yeah, remember that name.
And he ended up coming to the Patriots.
Yeah, I remember Zeke Mowat.
Had a little controversy himself with one of the reporters, Lisa Olson, I think.
In New York?
No, at the Patriots.
Oh, okay. So this happened.
If you remember. But anyways, Zeke was a great tight end, and I was looking at a future of sitting on the bench, which right. I wasn't that happy about. But the last preseason game of the preseason, before the first game, he blew his knee out against the Steelers. So I was the only tight end on the team because they had already.
So they had one backup, and it was you.
One backup was me. They had cut the rest of them. The other backup was Don Hasselbeck, the father of the Hasselbecks. He's an old Patriot guy. They had to bring him back actually to help coach me through my rookie year, I was very fortunate to have that. But without Zeke Mowat blowing his knee out, I might never have played in the NFL.
It's amazing how things happen. The circumstances.
Lucky break.
Yeah. So that was 85. 86?
86, we ended up winning the Super Bowl. So 85, I had a decent year. 86, I had a great year.
So Phil Simms was a quarterback.
Phil Simms was
Yeah.
a quarterback. You know, we had Lawrence Taylor, Carl Banks, Harry Carson on the defense. I mean, our defense was spectacular. Our offense was pretty good. Joe Morris was a local kid from Ayer, Mass. He was our running back. He was unbelievable. We had a good line. We had a good team. You know, we had a good like all around team like the Patriots of today.
Yeah.
Where they're not necessarily great players everywhere, but good solid players across the board. And we did have superstars. We had Lawrence Taylor was our superstar. You know, and Phil Simms was our superstar.
Lawrence Taylor was probably the most well known, I would think, at that time.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
There's a few other linebackers though that.
Well, Carl Banks was a great
yeah.
linebacker. Harry Carson was a great linebacker. George Martin was a great D lineman. Leonard Marshall was a great D lineman. Jim Burt was our nose guard. He was unbelievable.
So what was your experience playing with Lawrence Taylor? I mean, he was certainly, you know, not only a very popular player, however, you'd also hear about other things that was
yeah, he was
supposedly
crazy.
happening.
Yeah, he was crazy, and he was great, you know. And he was the blessing, being on the team with Lawrence Taylor was a blessing and a curse. The blessing was, you know, everybody I played against besides Lawrence Taylor was easy, right? And it was always great to have on your team because you knew the other team's offense wasn't going to score that many points, which meant we didn't have to score that many points to win.
Right.
The curse was I had to practice against them every day.
Yeah.
You know, throughout, you know, as time went on and I was accepted into the fold and we became, you know, real teammates, he would take it easy on me and vice versa and all that stuff. So it was kind of a little easier. But I'd say the first year or so, I mean, it was every day and back then we hit every day.
Wow.
Not like today. Every day was game-like conditions. And, you know, the guy in front of me was Lawrence Taylor, which made my life hard. But like I said, made Sundays easy because there was nobody like him in the league, and except maybe Andre Tippett for the Patriots. Anybody else I ever played against was...
So Andre Tippett, you would say, was
Andre Tippett
one
was
stood out as someone very difficult to play against.
Yes, he was one of the best ever, no question about it. He's in the Hall of Fame. He belongs there. He deserves it. And he's definitely on the level of Lawrence Taylor. I mean, people won't give him the credit, but I mean, he is, and he was.
Interesting. So that was '86, and then I think because you actually ended up winning 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah. So '86 and '87. We went on strike. We had our first strike, and you know we blew it. Our replacement team wasn't any good, so our replacement team lost every game, right? So the Washington Redskins actually put together a good replacement team, and they won all their games. But when we all came back, it was all a mess, and they ended up going to the Super Bowl and winning. '86 or '87, so '88 was, you know, we were good. We almost won the division. '89, I blew my knee out against the Chargers. I missed half the season. In '90, I came back with my knee. In '90, we won the Super Bowl in '90. And then because of complications with my leg, the Giants released me after the Super Bowl. And I had to go. I was out of the league. No one wanted to touch me.
So that was how many years? So that was about 5 years in the league?
6 years at the end. 6 years at the Giants.
That's about an average career at that point,
Well, the average career is only 3.
3?
Yeah,
Wow.
3.5, something like that.
So you actually were already ahead of the game at that point.
Yeah. But I actually had to come back and sit out a year in rehab. In the interim, Bill Belichick got the Cleveland coaching job. And when we said goodbye at the Giants, he said, listen, if you think you can ever play again, give me a call. So that's what I did. So I was feeling good in Winthrop. I you know, through the '91 season, I was feeling like I was getting better. And I called him. I said, I think I can play. You know, he said, all right. He brought me in for a tryout in between the '91-'92 season. He liked what he saw. Against the wishes of the doctor, he signed me to a 1-year contract. So he let me back in the NFL, which was huge for me.
So it was Bill Belichick that did that?
Bill Belichick.
Wow.
Yeah. No one else would have given me a chance. And to be even more gracious, after that year was done, I had a great offer from Philadelphia in free agency. that the Cleveland organization wouldn't match.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt bad about leaving Cleveland because they had given me a chance to come back. And Belichick sat me down and said, listen, you only have a couple of years left because we can't match what Philadelphia is giving you. So he goes, just go and get your money while you can. Don't worry about me.
Yeah.
I thought that was really nice of him.
So you have firsthand experience as Bill Belichick as your coach and someone that you
Bill Belichick's a great coach.
with. And, yeah.
Well, he was our coach at the Giants too, so I knew him from the Giants.
He was the assistant coach.
He was the defensive coordinator.
Okay.
And he was the linebacker coach.
Bill Parisella was the head coach.
Parisella was the head coach. So Belichick was the linebacker coach, so we would always do our drills with the linebackers. So, I had a lot more experience with him than most players, except for the linebackers, And he's a great guy, great coach, and he's a good person, and he's funny. You don't notice that if you just judge him by the press conferences.
Right.
But he really is. He's a good guy. He's fun to hang around with, and I respect him a lot.
Awesome. So you have a few photos that you brought.
Yep.
Kind of walk us a little bit through, elaborate on your career a little bit. So this one. This one is. Here you go. That's me. The light scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl against the Broncos in '86 season, '87 Super Bowl. And the cool thing about that is this happened just after halftime when we were losing. And the cool thing about this picture, I don't know if you can pan into it, the scoreboard is right above my head, and if you can see it, it says Broncos 10, Giants 9. I can barely make that out, yeah,
right?
10-9.
This touchdown was the go-ahead touchdown in the Super Bowl because we never lost the lead again.
So this was the winning.
So I consider it the winning touchdown, right. Yeah. I don't care what anyone says. That was the winning touchdown. With the
so
Super
that was
Bowl.
Elway's. You played against John Elway in the
John
Broncos.
Elway, yeah. This is just a nice painting. Sean Stellato, he's a local sports agent.
He's in the paper quite often. I've read about him. Yeah.
Yeah,
he's an agent.
He's a good guy. He had this drawn up for me. It was pretty cool because it kind of chronicles the career. There's the Giants. There's Notre Dame, and I can't see what the fine print is, but it's like the two-time Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, it says All-American at Notre Dame, and then two-time Super Bowl champ, tight end for the Giants.
So,
was your agent Sean or
no? Sean was just a kid,
So he was. Yeah, that's okay.
And I love this picture because this is me and my brother, David. That's when I was on the Giants and he was on the Arizona Cardinals. And someone snapped a shot of that as we were walking off the field together after a game.
So who won that game?
Oh, the Giants, because the Cardinals were horrible. But I have other pictures when I was on Cleveland and he was on Minnesota, where they beat us pretty good. But I like this one just because I think because we won.
Yeah.
But it's a great to have my brother and my little brother be able to make the NFL was huge, and then to actually be on the same field at the same time playing was a great experience. I just wish that we had been able to play together.
In the same team would have been great. Yeah, it would have been great. Yeah. So I know that we're going to be short for time. So let's two things I want to touch on before we've got about 5 minutes left. Just generally your thoughts on real estate as throughout your career you moved around different areas that you experienced selling, buying and selling homes, and how you feel like that compares to this area. Just a little bit of a overview on that from your perspective.
Yeah. So, I've lived in the Cleveland area, I've lived in the Philly area, I've lived in the New York area, and I've lived here. Of all the places, and I've seen the country, I've seen everything, because, not just from playing, but I've been around. To me, there's no greater place than the North Shore of Boston. And I'm not saying Boston, I'm saying the North Shore of Boston. Because even if I had to live here, I wouldn't live out in the western suburbs, I wouldn't live on the South Shore. I just don't like it down there. I like it up here. You got the water, you got downtown if you want, it's right there. You got the mountains if you're a skier. I mean, it's
Close to
beautiful.
everything,
It's
yeah.
close to everything, and the great people here, great history. I'm a history buff. I love the character, the personality of this area. And as far as real estate, I've had, I bought a house in New Jersey that, I sold for what I bought it for, so I didn't make anything there. Cleveland, we rented. Philly, we rented, so I didn't really buy stuff there. But I bought property in Florida, Naples, Florida. I lived there for a little while too. That was hit or miss. But up here, we bought a house in Topsfield that we sold. We made some money on it. Now we have a house in Boxford that we live in. I'm not sure if it's appreciating or not.
Right, yeah.
But hopefully I won't have to find out for a few more years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, owning a home is great, especially if you're raising a family, if you can afford it and do it. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
Excellent. So that's good to hear that you like this area the best. It's
Oh, by far.
compliment
I wouldn't
and you've
live-
got some
wouldn't
experience.
live
That's why I
anywhere
wanted to bring it
else.
up to see what you really thought. Yeah. Excellent. And the last thing I wanted to touch upon also is kind of like the NFL now and then, and specifically to the topic of concussions, injuries. Your experience, do you feel like things have really changed? And, you hear all about the concussions now. Do you think it's worse? I mean, was it all happening when you were playing, and your personal experience with, and your comments about that?
Well, I mean, it seems like it's more prevalent now because nobody paid attention to it back then. So I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's definitely on everybody's mind now. And as far as who gets concussions, who doesn't get concussions, I really do think it's a genetics type of thing, and some people are more predisposed to it than others. I was never diagnosed with a concussion in my career. But nowadays, they'll say anytime that you get dinged or you feel a little lightheaded, they'll call that a concussion. So, I mean, I had thousands of those.
So you would have probably gotten called out at least,
There might have been one or two incidents where I would have maybe had to take this baseline test now that they have nowadays. But it's the long-term effects of the concussions that I think are really the troubling ones. And I do see some of those in my contemporaries. Like I was saying before, like I knew Junior Seau pretty well. I played at Notre Dame with Dave Dewison. I played at the Giants with Dave Dewison. I played on the Eagles with Andre Waters. There was another guy, Tom McHale, on the Eagles that I played with. I mean, all these guys either, committed suicide or, and I think in Tom's case, it was some sort of a self-destructive type of thing, but that they all attributed to CTE stuff, concussion stuff. I mean, I don't know what's what. I know my brother was a linebacker, so if there's anybody who has mental problems, it's going to be him rather than me. He played with his head. You have to when you're a linebacker.
Right.
And I look at him, and he's a teacher at Malden Catholic. He's doing fine. I don't see any problems with him. So I do think it's a case-by-case study, but I do think the guys who do have problems should be helped. I mean, the
Right.
NFL's making tons of money. If they had just went ahead and helped out the guys who were having problems from the get-go, I don't think they would have all these problems. The problem with them is, by helping, I think that they perceived it as admitting guilt or
Yeah, I think
admitting
there's something
liability.
going on there. I mean, I saw the movie Concussion. Seems like there's some.
Yeah, so if they were less worried about themselves and more worried about their players, they might not be in the pickle that they're in now. Because
Right.
now it's open season
Yeah.
for the NFL with this concussion lawsuit. I mean, there's thousands of players. I mean, even I'm part of it. You sign on just in case. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. So
Right.
everybody's just signing on, just in case. And they got a problem on their hands.
Yep. Interesting. One last thing I just want to mention, we're going to wrap up. The 1981 graduating class from you, so you graduated high school in 1981.
Right.
It was quite a class we were talking about earlier. Bobby Carpenter.
Bobby Carpenter at the Prep. I think he was Peabody kid, right? He went on to have a great
NHL
NHL career. Patrick Ewing was Cambridge Ring and Latin in 81.
He actually played for the New York
Played
team.
for the Knicks.
Yeah.
I mean, now he's coaching at Georgetown. I mean, guy's spectacular career. And, of course, everybody's favorite, Doug Flutie.
Yeah.
At Notre in 1981. We all know about him. I actually played against him in the Shriners All-Star game in the summer of 81. So
Quite a graduating class.
yeah, and I had never heard of him before. So I mean, for Massachusetts, it's pretty
pretty
special
amazing.
year for sports.
Yep. Excellent. Well, very interesting show. Thank you very much for watching the show. We really appreciate it. And we want to thank BevCam for all their help, as usual. And we would love to see you next time. And please visit my website, jasonparisellateam.com, for any further information. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.